Now, Russia's influence reaches deep into the British establishment, and successive governments in the UK have failed to act. That is the stark warning issued in testimony to a parliamentary inquiry on Russian infiltration into British politics. Sources tell CNN the Cross-Party Intelligence and Security Committee heard from multiple witnesses. They allege that Russia's built a network of friendly British diplomats, lawyers, parliamentarians, and other influences across the political spectrum. The full parliamentary report has yet to be published, causing angry questions about why the delay. CNN's Nina Dos Santos investigates for today's debrief.
Just weeks before Britain's head to the polls, a bombshell allegation. Members of Parliament say Boris Johnson's government is suppressing a report on Russian influence on UK politics. The contents of the report, compiled by a cross-party intelligence and security committee, are bound by secrecy until Downing Street approves their release. The intelligence services MI5 and 6 made contributions, as did private citizens who are experts on the field. I've obtained some of their written and oral statements here, and the picture that they paint is a troubling one. They say that successive governments have turned a blind eye to Moscow's targeting of political parties and research roles inside the House of Commons. And they claim that well-connected lobbyists, lawyers and lawmakers have worked to help Russia infiltrate the British establishment. One of the witnesses was the American-born financier Bill Browder, who, despite at one point being Russia's biggest foreign investor, fell foul of the Kremlin 15 years ago. I spoke with him before the report was complete.
The people who we've seen working to further Russian interests in the UK are some of the people at the highest level of the establishment.
Can you give me names?
I can give you lots of names, but we start out with Lord Goldsmith.
Peter Goldsmith was the UK's Attorney General under Tony Blair. Browder claims that he was involved in a failed effort to help a Russian avoid being on an EU sanctions list. Also mentioned in his testimony is a company co-founded by Lynton Crosby, a heavyweight in Conservative Party circles. That business is alleged to have helped Goldsmith's work. Are you 100% confident of the evidence that you have to support these claims?
I would not have submitted the claims if I didn't have confidence in the evidence backing it up.
Goldsmith's law firm said it would not comment on client matters, but stressed that everyone has the right to legal representation. Crosby's company said that it was enlisted by Goldsmith and did not interact with Russian parties. And Crosby's lawyer said that he was not personally aware of the research done by the entity he co-founded. Another witness to the inquiry accused authorities of, quote, putting political considerations ahead of national security. In testimony delivered in the wake of the poisoning of the former Russian spy Sergei Skripal in Salisbury, they say that Russia has managed to do what no terrorist organisation has been able to thus far, deploying a chemical weapon on UK soil. And they claim that Russia presents, quote, potentially the most significant threat to the UK's institutions and its way of life. Analysts say it's high time that UK lawmakers tackled Kremlin interference.
I think during the Cold War, what Russia sought to do was gather intelligence. What Russia's been doing since 1991 is trying to gather influence. And Putin has long wanted to weaken the European Union, divide the transatlantic alliance. And unfortunately, Western publics and Western politicians are now doing those things for Putin.
In Westminster, the row over Russia was the subject of a contentious exchange during Parliament's last session before next month's general election.
So for what purpose is the Prime Minister still considering it? It certainly can't be the risk to national security, as the agencies themselves have said there is none.
It is not as if, Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister has had not one or two other things to do during the last several weeks, notably obtaining a good deal for Britain in withdrawing from the European Union.
Downing Street's declined to comment and has repeatedly denied that the failure to publish the findings was politically motivated. CNN has approached the Kremlin but not heard back.
Order, order.
With Parliament now dissolved and the report kicked into the long grass, it may be many months before the committee's conclusions see the light of day.
And And Nina joins me now. Nina, this is fascinating reporting, and it's come at a very fascinating time because we're now in an election period, and the report itself looks like it would potentially be bad for the last government, for Boris Johnson. But as with many things, is it going to be the fact that it's the cover-up rather than the report itself? They seem to be delaying it coming out.
Well, we don't actually know what is inside this report. It's very important to point out that this is one of the most secretive bodies that conducted this inquiry, the Security and Intelligence Committee that has oversight of the intelligence agencies. And as such, the members of that committee have actually signed the Official Secrets Act. So for that reason, the committee chairman, Dominic Grieve, although he's making a lot of noise about this report having seemingly been blocked by Number 10 Downing Street, he is not actually leaking it himself. That's a very important distinction. What we have been talking about here is essentially testimony, private citizens' input into this report. And as you could tell from my piece there, a lot of these testimonies had been handed in maybe even as long as 18 months ago. So we don't really know whether or not this report includes a lot of historical allegations. We don't really know which party in particular is mentioned. What we do know is that they're making the point that over successive governments, there has been a large attempt by Russia, according to these private individuals, to try and infiltrate the British establishment, to focus money on political parties that at the time would have been in power, and that can also be a cross-party effort at all as well. Obviously, at the moment, it doesn't look great going into election to have anything blocked, and that is why the decision to try and sit on it at the moment, if indeed that's what's happening, is so incendiary.
Nina, thank you very much.